This morning I will give 3 presentations. The first presentation is on the tasks of the IAEA in general. The second presentation is on the MODARIA program, which stands for Modeling and Data for Radiological Impact Assessment. And in my third presentation, I will focus on the consequences of radionuclide depositions to the environment at different times of the year. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. Don't be shy. I will try. I'm here for you to answer your questions. So, let's start with the first presentation. And this is about the role of the International Atomic Energy Agency in developing the system of radiation protection. Let me give first some details about the IAEA. The IAEA was founded in 1957, so we are now 60 years old. This is about my age. But at that time I was not involved. The IAEA is a part of the UN, of the United Nations family. We have the United Nations in New York, and there are some specialized organizations, for example the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, the FAO, which is a Food and Agricultural Organization, and more, and one of them is the IAEA. This is the International Atomic Energy Agency. And we are dealing mainly with science and with technology related to nuclear applications. The IAEA has meanwhile 160 member states. To understand the role of the IAEA, I think you have to know what was the reasons for its foundation. And it's a key element of the IAEA is the verification of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and Agreement. It's an international treaty to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology. And any member states has to sign that weapons and weapons technology is not further distributed. In contrast, the IAEA promised to promote the cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy and to work for achieving nuclear disarmament in general and complete disarmament. You know, we are away from this, but this is one of the goals of the IAEA. Any member state has to accept that the IAEA performs regular inspections of the nuclear facilities in the member states, and this is to check the compliance with a commitment to use nuclear material and facilities only for peaceful purposes. And any member state has to accept this commitment. In addition to this, the IAEA provides assistance to member states in using nuclear techniques and in research and industry, provides assistance in the generation of electricity, which is in this case nuclear power, and also transfer technology and knowledge to developing member states. The IAEA has a large department of technical cooperation which is dedicated to organize this transfer of knowledge to member states. So we have safety of nuclear techniques, safety of transport, safety of nuclear facilities. And for this purpose, the IAEA develops standards to ensure safety of any nuclear applications. And the final aim is to protect human health, and the environment from effects of ionizing radiation. These standards play a key role in the work of the IAEA. However, the IAEA does not develop these standards in isolation. This is embedded in a system with other international organizations. We have here, for example, the UNSCEAR. UNSCEAR stands for United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. The UNSCEAR reports directly to the UN Assembly in New York. It's a committee for the United Nations, and on a regular basis they prepare scientific reports on radiation effects in general. For example, one recent example was the UNSCEAR report on the doses and effects following the Fukushima accident which happened in 2011. Based on this activities by the UNSCEAR, we have the ICRP. ICRP stands for International Commission on Radiological Protection. This is more or less a private charity, a private organization which was founded in 1928 when people realized that the application of radiation in medicine caused health problems and caused severe diseases to people. Because at that time it wasn't really the effects between radiation and health was not well understood. And so the ICRP answers the question, what are, for example, what are appropriate dose limits for people living in the vicinity of a nuclear installation or for people working in a nuclear installation. The IAEA, we develop safety standards, for example, for nuclear safety, for the management of radioactive waste, and also for the discharge of radionuclides to the environment. Based on the outcome of these other international organizations. So the UNSCEAR reports to the United Nations, and the United Nations has more than 200 member states. So we have these reports, and based on that, the IAEA developed some safety fundamentals. And these safety fundamentals, they should be taken into account for all applications of ionizing radiation. Let's go for a moment back to UNSCEAR. We have UNSCEAR is mainly dealing with the evaluation of all sources of exposure to radiation, both natural for example, cosmic and terrestrial radiation, inhalation of radon and radon daughters. Radon is a radioactive noble gas which occurs everywhere in the world. Then the intake of natural radionuclides is food, and it gives the current levels of exposure and trends of exposure. In addition, they try to understand the effect of ionizing radiation both on human health and also on wildlife. And it's interesting to see IAEA that the UNSCEAR, or the work of UNSCEAR, represents a kind of consensus of the UN member states on the effects of ionizing radiation. Because it takes quite a long time until all these reports are developed, and many people are involved, many views are taken into account. So this is not the opinion of a few people. This represents a larger consensus. One example I give here is a global average of doses to the public from natural radiation sources. This has been compiled by UNSCEAR, and this includes or represents a kind of a global average. Of course, this global average is subject to local variations. Let me start with ingestion. This means the uptake of radionuclides with the food. We have here about a natural from 0.3 millisievert, but we have also a wide range of 0.2 to about 1 millisievert. Very important is the inhalation, and this is in particular the inhalation of radon and radon daughters. Radon has a half-life of 3.8 days, and it rapidly decays to other radioactive isotopes. And also the range of inhalation is quite high. It goes from 0.2. If you live in an island in the middle of the Pacific, or 10 if you live in areas where you have, for example, granite in the underground, which contains uranium, and which is the mother nucleus of radon. Then we have the external exposure at 0.9 millisievert per year, also with a considerable variation. And the total average from natural sources is about 2.4 millisievert, with a range of 1 to 13, mainly based on inhalation of radon. Okay, the ICRP, that was founded in 1928, and it was in particular at that time analyzing the knowledge on radiation-related health effects. Depending on the exposure, this means on the total dose which was applied, but also on the dose rate. This means what was the time period during which these doses were applied, the dose rates. Looking also at age and gender, pathway, whether it's external or internal, and looking for dosimetry. And provides, for example, the dose per unit intake in sievert per becquerel for intake with food, or sievert per becquerel for intake with inhalation. And the ICRP provides then recommendations for radiation protection. So based on that, the IAEA has developed a system of safety standards. As I said, on top of it, there are fundamental safety principles, 10 principles, which are, so to say, 10 commandments for radiation protection. And then we have safety requirements. This means what needs to be done to fulfill these principles. And safety guides to say what is the best way to meet these requirements. How to do it. So what to do and how to do it. Meanwhile, we have more than 120 safety standards covering a wide range of applications, from nuclear safety to waste management, but also to medical applications. I don't want to go in further detail. I just want to show that this is a relatively well-developed system to ensure safety. Okay, here are these 10 principles. I don't want to go into much detail here, but these are the key issues which have to be considered when applying nuclear techniques. One key standard is a so-called BSS. This stands for Basic Safety Standards. And again, this represents an international consensus on radiation protection. And international because it's based on ICRP, this is one thing. However, this is a publication which has been developed by the IAEA. However, in cooperation with a number of other international organizations. For example, the European Union, the FAO, Food and Agriculture, IAEA, ILO, International Labour Organization for Protection of Workers, NEA is Nuclear Energy Agency, PAHU is for Pan American Health Organization, UNEP is the United Nations Environmental Program, and the WHO Health Organization. So it is not only the IAEA, it's the IAEA in cooperation with other international organizations. And this is, I think, an important point to raise. And these basic safety standards, they define responsibilities. This means who is responsible for what? Is the government or the regulator? What is the response of the operators, of those people who apply nuclear techniques? Define different exposure situations, radiation protection principles, and criteria. I will come to that in a moment. For example, the system of radiation protection. It's a 3-3-3 system. First of all, we look at 3 different exposed groups. First of all, it's workers, people who work with in their profession with nuclear, with radionuclides or with nuclear applications. Patients, this is for people who are undergo diagnostic or therapeutic examinations, or the general public. This is you and me and all about who might be exposed by radiation. We have 3 exposure situations. One is for plant purposes, for emergency and for existing exposures. And then we have 3 radiation protection principles. Here we have the plant. This is for operation of facilities. Before you do anything, you have to make a plan. You have to show to the regulator or the government, whoever is responsible, that this facility is safe, and that you have to demonstrate that it is safe, and it has to be demonstrated that during the operation of the facility, those to people living close to this facility remain below 1 millisievert per year. The next one is we have emergencies. Emergencies, nobody wants it, but also for emergencies, one has to be prepared. Emergency can be done by accidents or by malicious acts. Malicious act means it's a dirty bomb. And for that we have a so-called reference level. A reference level is not a limit. The limit is a limit. You cannot be above the limit. If you plan something to be above the limit, you have to change the plan. However, in case of emergencies, this is difficult to do because you never know what happens and what is the extent, what is the weather condition, etc. So you can also give a target, and this target means reference level. This is a target level. And this means when you are facing an emergency, you have to take care that the dose to people remains below 100 millisievert. Better or less. And then you have the third situation. This is the existing exposure situations. Existing exposure situation means an accident happened. The accident is now under control. So there is no further release of radionuclides to the environment. However, there are still some residues from the past. This means the radionuclides are still in the environment and cause an exposure to people. Again, also in this case, from the very beginning, you do not really know what are the special conditions, and therefore also a target level is given of 1 to 20 millisievert. It should not be higher than 20, but it should be as low as possible. And this is about the situation we are facing now in parts of the Fukushima prefecture, which is for the existing exposure situation. We have, the situation has been managed, radionuclides exist, and the consequences should be as low as possible. So let's give one word to the radiation protection principles. These principles come from the fundamental safety principles. And we have 3 principles. First of all, justification, optimization, limitation. Justification is if you are doing something, you should have a net benefit. You should do more good than harm. This sounds more easy than it's in reality, because if you cannot really quantify it, it's difficult. What is good? What is it good if you can enter a forest without any concerns? This differs from people to people. But in any case, do more good than harm. Everything should have net benefit. Optimization. Optimization means it's also something which is a principle which needs to be applied to the specific circumstances. And it says it should be as low as reasonable, achievable, economic and social factors being taken into account. The so-called Alara principle. It means exposures should be reduced as much as possible. However, it's not necessary to bring the exposures down to zero, because we have a variation of the natural background, and we have a natural background of 2.4 millisievert per year, and it's necessary to even reduce further very low doses. And limitation means we have the limitation of doses. We have for plants, we have 1 millisievert per year dose limit, and for exposures, for existing and emergencies, we have dose limits and reference levels. Okay, these are some more fundamental things. For example, the IAEA prepares and develops also safety standards for specific problems, for specific issues, topics. And one of them is the remediation process for affected areas, for areas affected by past activities and accidents. And these standards show what should be done to properly manage existing exposure situations, to properly manage situations where you have radionuclides existing in the environment from past accidents, for example. This was published in 2007, and this safety guide is currently being updated. The IAEA presents also a number of technical documents for the application of the safety standards. These are some documents which are particular within the environmental procedure in the environmental field, starting from 92, 2001, models for use in assessing the impact of discharges of radioactive substances to the environment. Or here, the handbook of parameter values for the prediction of radionuclide transfer in terrestrial and freshwater environments. Or the handbook of parameter values for prediction of radionuclide transfer to wildlife. So to humans, to wildlife. And Brenda Howard was largely involved in preparing, developing these data compilations. So, this was a very short overview over the work of the IAEA, focusing on the radiation protection system. I think it's important to know that this protection system is internationally agreed by all the member states which are in the IAEA. It is based on science. It is based on the knowledge we currently have on the effects of ionizing radiation to human health and to the environment. It includes all relevant exposure situations. It is for workers, for people, for the general public. It is for patients, and it also addresses the environment. And this system is applied in many member states. Not in all, but those who don't apply it, they apply something similar. So this is, so to say, the offer of the IAEA. However, these safety standards have to implement it within the national responsibilities in the countries. So the IAEA cannot enforce countries to apply these standards. However, many countries do it because it is a a comprehensive system which covers the wide range of applications. And finally, also these standards are embedded in international conventions. Conventions are treaties and agreements between member states to work, for example, for a good, for a safe management of radioactive waste, for this, for example, the London Convention. The London Convention prevents or forbids the dumping of radioactive waste in the ocean, etc. So, for the time, thank you very much for your attention. This was my first presentation. Do you have any questions or comments? Feel free. Yes, please.
Thank you for interesting presentation. And you mentioned one of the tasks of the unskilled is to represent the consensus. And please give us some example of the consensus that are represented by unskilled.
Yeah. One famous example, particularly for Japan, maybe the report of UNSCEAR on, let me check, what is the right title? It's too small. Anyway, it's a report of UNSCEAR on the doses that occurred among the population and workers after the accident in Fukushima. This report was initiated by UNSCEAR in 2012, and it was finished, I think, in 2014. Within this group, or I think in total 60 participants from different countries contributed to the development of this report. And these participants came from 20, 30 member states, I don't know exactly, covering different aspects of the Fukushima accident and analyzing all the data, or most of the data. More is always difficult to say. The data, the knowledge which was present in 2012 and 2013 to provide estimates of doses to people after the Fukushima accident. And this included doses, for example, to people who have been evacuated, doses to people who have not been evacuated, doses to workers. And I mean, the work in such an international organization is relatively complex because the issue is to bring together the knowledge of many people to discuss the problems and the topics and to come up with a kind of a consensus, with a kind of for an estimation and an assessment. And beyond this Fukushima report, the ONSCEAR also deals, for example, with the effects of ionizing radiation to children, or with the effects of radon to human health. And the idea is always to collect the present knowledge and to extract what is known and also to identify where are still gaps of knowledge which require further efforts. And any other question? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. So, if any country violates the guidelines of IAEA, for example, in media we saw that Norway is violating and disposing the waste to forest. So, in this case, what is the role of IAEA?
As I said, the IAEA, there's no power to enforce things in the member states. The IAEA is only active on request of the member states. If a member state says, we have a problem and please provide us some guidance, bring or let's share your experience, then the IAEA is ready to go to this country and to give advice to this country, to analyze the situation and to provide advice to this country. At the end, it is the responsibility of the country, of the member state, to follow this advice. And this is the case for any other international organization, because all the member states are sovereign countries, and nobody else can really enforce those things. You can only give advice and recommendations. Is there any other question? Yes, please.
I would like to know what happens if there's no consensus and if this ever happens?
Yeah, of course. I think so. For example, if you look for the ONSCEAR, I mean, radiation effects are discussed. And sometimes they are also discussed controversially. But the task of ONSCEAR, and also of ICRP, is to analyze the current knowledge which is there and to extract from this knowledge those things, to extract the key messages of the story. But on the other side, also to identify those areas where still knowledge gaps remain. And you can see this if you read these reports, these publications. It never says really it is like that. It always tries also to explore the remaining uncertainties. One famous example is the effect of radiation at low doses to people. For example, what is the effect of, let's say, 10 millisievert? The problem is, this is a question which can not really be answered. What we know, we have some idea, what is the effect of 1 sievert? 1,000 times more. We know it from a number of collectives. One famous and sad collective are the survivors of the use of atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Their exposures have been pretty high, and from there, relations between doses and effects can be developed. However, if you're coming down to very low doses which are, let's say, in the range of the natural background, 1 to 13, and I mean the overall variation is larger. So then it's very difficult to say what is if you have 10 millisievert or 1 millisievert. You can never detect it. It's impossible. It's the same, you know, if one example, maybe it's not the best example, so excuse me, but you know, if someone smokes 20 cigarettes a day, it's not healthy. This is for sure. However, what happens if one smokes a cigarette per month or per week? Could be, I mean, you could say, don't do it, it's not good anyway. But nobody can tell you what is a cigarette per month or a cigarette per week, whether this has really impact on the health. And so because when you are close to this natural background or the variation of the natural background, it's very difficult to say what is the additional effect, the additional health effect from such additional exposures. And these are things which are discussed, for example, discussed in the ONSCEAR or in the ICRP, and you say, okay, the consensus based on this, we believe that there's little effect, but there are also effects which might be there are also factors which might modify this conclusion. But after 60 years of, or 70 years or even more of work in radiation protection and in radiation science, I think one has meanwhile a relatively well idea about the effects of ionizing radiation and in human health.